Today, guys, we're talking about maceration, all right? Maceration in the realm or the space of perfume, right? Nothing else, maceration. Let me spell it out for you one time. So it's M-A-C-E-R-A-T-I-O-N, maceration, right? I've been hearing persons using it out of context and so on, but I really just wanted to bring some clarity to everyone today. So I hope that this video could do that for you, all right? So if you're interested, keep it locked. All right, so let's get straight into it, guys. Again, I've been hearing that terminology. You know, people use it loosely, right? But there are some things that you need to understand where this is concerned, right? Again, I'm not talking off of the top of my head. I've done a lot of research on it, and I have even discussed it with perfumers and so on. So let's get into it. What is maceration? In a nutshell, maceration is the process of allowing a formulation or composition to sit and blend together and become one and become cohesive. All right, so when we understand what a perfume actually is, that brings a bit more, you know, that brings a better understanding of what maceration is, right? So as we know, or most of us would know, a perfume is made up of essential oils, sometimes aroma chemicals, and some type of solvent. So you can use alcohol, which is called perfumer's alcohol. You could use persons blend alcohol and water at times, or you can use a carrier oil. All right, so all of these will come under solvents. All right, so that is what a fragrance is. It's a combination of those two things mainly. So you have essential oils, you have your aroma chemicals, and you have perfumer's alcohol, which is probably the most popular one that they use. And these things are raw materials, so when they come together, they don't just smell perfect from the onset. It needs time for the molecules and all the other ingredients to settle and become one. All right, these things have to become one to really smell pleasing to the nose, and again, that takes time. So if you have done any type of experimentation when you were younger, you would realize that if you take water, put it in a glass, and then you throw some type of oil in that same cup, you would realize that there's a separation, right? The oil doesn't just absorb into the water, they separate. The oil actually floats on that water. It's like the same thing in perfume. They don't just come together immediately. So that is why, because of quality control, every fragrance house is supposed to allow the fragrances to macerate before it gets to the consumer. So that can take anywhere from 3 weeks to all the way up to a year. All right, most houses would do 3 to 6 months, especially at the designers and the niche houses. The Middle Easterns, we'll talk about that shortly, but it has to be done for all these ingredients to come together in such a way that it could be offered to the consumer on the market. So what I want to highlight is that maceration takes place with the perfumers in the labs, in the factories, and so on. We as the consumers, we do not macerate fragrances, and that's where a lot of people, you know, kind of get it twisted a little bit. So yes, we as the consumers don't do that. That happens on the other side of the fence with the perfumers and so on. When the consumer finally gets it in an actual bottle, that process now is when we allow it to sit ourselves, that is maturation. All right, that is the process of us, the consumers, allowing the fragrance to mature. That's a different thing. All right, so that is where people kind of mix up the two. Again, with the designer houses and the niche houses, they usually allow their fragrances to macerate properly before they offer it to the consumers. However, we have Middle Eastern houses who the turnover is so quick and they release fragrances so often that sometimes that process is cut short and the fragrance isn't allowed to macerate properly. So by the time the consumer gets it, they'll find persons, you know, having little issues. This is very alcohol heavy, or it doesn't smell very well blended. It smells synthetic. It smells cheap. It smells like something is wrong with the fragrance, and that's mainly because it probably didn't macerate properly. All right, not all Middle Eastern houses are guilty of this, but there are some that really cut short that process. And again, you are getting Middle Eastern fragrances at such an affordable cost, or the final price is so, so small for the consumer. Really and truly, you can't expect the best or the highest quality or the best process in the background in some cases. As the old people say, you get what you pay for. All right. So again, I'm not criticizing all Middle Eastern houses. I think they are doing better now. But again, there are some that really cut short this process, and the consumers, they realize that something is wrong with the formulation. So with that being said, maceration has a cost to it, and that is why some companies kind of cut short, because when you allow that fragrance to sit for 6 months or a year, that's a long time before you actually make a return on your investment, or gain back any of the money you have put out, because that's a very long time. So again, some houses kind of cut short that process to keep the turnover going, the revenue up there. All right, but again, that's not supposed to be the case. All quality control is supposed to make sure that these formulations are macerated properly before the consumer gets them. All right, and again, as I said, when the consumer gets them now and we use the fragrance and so on, or we allow it to sit for a while, we are just allowing the fragrance to mature. So when the fragrance matures, as you can see with some cases, when you have bottles with the juice maybe one color when you get it, and then you leave it for 6 months and you come back and you see the juice gets a little darker, that's because the fragrance has matured a bit, right? So at that point, in some cases, it gets more potent, it gets stronger, it projects better, and it just seems, better blended. It smells more smooth, more rounded. It smells like one. Usually in the early stages, you can smell the separation. You smell the alcohol, you smell some of the oils, and it's just not cohesive. So again, only time allows that to happen. It's like wine. The longer the wine sits, is the better the wine gets. It's similar with perfume as well. All right, so we just have to really hope that these companies do their due diligence before it gets to us. All right, so again, most of them do it correctly, some don't. All right, but when you get it, always remember that you are allowing it to mature and not macerate. Right, there is a difference. We don't macerate. That is completely incorrect. Right, and again, I've done a lot of research with this, so I'm not just making up things and sharing with you today. It's it's a reality, it's facts. Okay, so remember, when you finally purchase your bottle, you can allow it to sit in a cool, dark place away from direct sunlight and so on. You want to keep that fragrance, you want to care for that fragrance, so that you can really enjoy the best of that fragrance when you care for it properly. All right, so again, your responsibility is that maturation process, but maceration, be informed that we do not macerate fragrances. Perfumers do. And again, by the time we receive that fragrance in a bottle, it has already been macerated. So keep that in mind. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Again, if you have further questions on this topic, of course, you can leave it in the comments and I'll respond there. Or I can probably do a follow-up video based on the amount of questions that I receive concerning this topic. All right, but I really just wanted to share this quickly so that we'll have a better understanding of how to utilize the terminologies when we're having discussions about perfume and fragrances and so on. I hope this was helpful in some way. If it was, please drop a like on the video, and also you can share this video with your family and your friends or anyone that you think would need or appreciate this type of information. Again, thanks for watching, guys. It was a pleasure hanging out with you today, and I really hope that this was beneficial to you in some way. So we do it here. Stay fresh, smell your best, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. So until then, I'm out. Take care, guys.